We all know the origins of the Big Blue Boy Scout Superman, the last son of Krypton sent to Earth and raised on a farm by Ma and Pa Kent, and turns out to be the man of tomorrow, the symbol of hope the world needs. But what if Clark didn't land in the fields of Smallville? What if instead of landing in a field of wheat, his ship lands near a forest near one of the whitest frat parties you've ever seen? And what if the powers of Krypton were given to three teenagers that have absolutely no idea how to use them responsibly and ultimately end up in the hands of the quiet kid at the back of the class? Chronicle is a found footage film that goes overlooked in my honest opinion. It's a story about three friends gaining powers only seen in comic books and having the time of their lives with them. But of course the film is found footage, so you already know that it takes a hard left turn when Green Goblin Jr. finally breaks after enduring so much. But where did these powers come from? And how come all three of these kids affect each other when using their powers separately? In today's cult meeting, we're going to be exploring the possible origins of the alien spaceship in Chronicle and how I believe it to be Kryptonian and why Chronicle was the first stepping stone in the twisted versions of Superman in live action and Hollywood scene. But before getting into today's cult meeting, leaving a like would be awesome as it gets the video out there, and subscribing will help the channel grow as we are growers and not showers. I also have a Patreon if you want to support the channel and my college funds because I'm on my second semester away from graduation. Also, follow me on Blue Sky on Instagram, and if you're interested in the Discord where we can all just hang out and talk about lore and other stuff, or just typically just hang out. If we can get this video to 100 likes, that would help me know people actually dig the idea of a Discord. Chronicle is a 2012 found footage movie that I personally saw on HBO. No, not the streaming service, the TV channel. Feel old yet? Because yeah, I sure do. Man, I miss TV. But before getting into the origins of these three teenagers' powers, here's a short summary of the entire movie. A quiet kid buys a camera, the quiet kid has an abusive alcoholic dad and terminally ill mom, he gets invited to a frat party, student council president invites him and his cousin to check out a hole they found, seems about right. Big hole leads to a possible Kryptonian ship, they fuck around and find out, oh cool, they have powers now. They mess around with said powers, Andrew uses powers to his advantage, we'll call him Green Goblin from now on. Green Goblin almost gets slayed at another frat party but vomits all over Ramona Flowers because he's drunk. SC President tries to talk him down but he thinks he's being made fun of. Deadbeat Dad finds a camera and what Andrew did, Goblin takes over Andrew's mind and whoops Deadbeat's ass, then has a moment and cries about it in a storm. Creed flies up and tries to talk to him but Goblin hits him with a lightning bolt, thus killing him. Goblin goes on a murder spree and robbing people and places for their money for his mom's medicine, recklessly shoving a shotgun and misfiring into a gas tank. He gets hospitalized and kills his deadbeat dad but gets saved by Superboy. Why? Fight. Superboy kills Goblin Jr. by impaling him, and he takes the camera to a snowy mountain area, I can't remember where it was, for Goblin's final resting place. The end. Now I don't do like full scene by scene recaps because it takes too much time from what I want to say in the video. So I always recommend all of you go check out the movies yourselves, as these videos never really capture the magic or the real experience films give off. So if you want to go check out Chronicles and check out the movie itself, if you haven't already, it's a 7 out of 10 on IMDb and a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. If that doesn't give you enough motivation to watch this, I don't know what will. But now let's go back to the beginning of the film. The first frat party. It's obvious that this thing is a ship. And it's not just a ship. A Kryptonian ship. I don't know if there's any established lore for Chronicles, but I'm going off pure observation here. It's possible that this is the Kryptonian ship Clark arrived on Earth with. But how did these three inherit these powers just by touching it or being in its presence? Now, originally I thought it would be the Codex of Krypton splitting in between the three of them. That would explain why the three of them are affected when some overuses their powers, or from what I see, gets better at using their powers. But after rewatching that scene from Man of Steel, I realized Clark had the Codex merged within him. Now, this could mean two things. A, this is not a Kryptonian ship, but instead is actually a Martian ship. which would explain all the telekinesis and the shared mind these three have, and why it affects all three of them, which is a much more realistic option. Or B, the option that I want to go with because I love Superman. B, Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, died in that pod on its entry, or when it crashed, and the Codex was looking for a new host to house the billion and billions of Kryptonian DNA. Instead of finding one host, it splits into 3 teams who are at the wrong place at the wrong time. After splitting into these 3, the Codex then linked their minds together to best keep track of them. That's why Creed knew about Goblin whooping his dad's ass without Goblin having to tell him, because their minds are permanently connected up until their deaths. But with the splitting of the Codex came drawbacks. In the film, it was established that these 3 were near invincible, up until later when Creed's death, we find out that if one of them dies, the invulnerability almost goes away completely. After Goblin kills Creed out of pure emotion, their invincibility is only enough for flight now, so they don't burn up when they take off for flying. But what this tells me is the Kryptonian DNA is divided between these 3. One is more efficient at telekinesis, another is better at flying, and another is the strongest. After the death of Creed, their invulnerability almost completely depletes. This tells me they draw off of each other. Each of them draw their power from each other to be as strong as they are. That's why Andrew started becoming more powerful on his own. Creed and Superboy's nose would not stop bleeding because Andrew was drawing so much power from the both of them to the point where it was taking a toll on their bodies. When Creed died, I believe Andrew sucked up a good chunk of his power, should have worded that better, but I think he couldn't absorb enough of the part of him that made him and Superboy as invincible as they once were. I believe that when Creed died, I think a part of the Codex died along with him. A chunk of that Kryptonian DNA where they're basically bulletproof and invulnerable died, which made Andrew and Superboy not as invulnerable as they once were. That gets me thinking. When Superboy eventually killed Andrew, did he absorb his power? You know, we might actually never know or get an actual confirmation, but I believe when one of them kills another, the amount of power that said dude had in his body gets absorbed by the dude that just killed them. Because again, the Codex of Krypton is trying to keep these billions of lives as DNA information alive as much as possible. But when one of the hosts die, a portion of that DNA dies along with them, and not all of the DNA is transferred to the remaining hosts. But not all of the powers would be transferred over because of the damage the body has endured. This makes the Codex of Krypton incomplete, making an imperfect Kryptonian human hybrid. But Greg, Kryptonians don't have telekinesis powers. You don't read the comics, don't you? Oh, you absolute nerd, you're just going off of assumptions here. Superman doesn't have telekinesis, Ha! Joke's on you, I have. In Action Comics 1050, after Lex sends Superman almost halfway across the galaxy, he literally rips open a portal in front of Lex and disassembles his armor just by touching it. I know this comic came out after Chronicles, years after Chronicle, and it's absolutely coincidental, and I'm running on absolute crack right now, but if this is the case, it would be right to assume that this Kryptonian DNA is a much more evolved type of Kryptonian, minus the heat vision. Another small detail I noticed are the similarities in the first flight scenes in Man of Steel and Chronicle. Look closely. Both have rocks hovering over both Andrew and Clark beginning to take off. This tells me they're lifting themselves up with their telekinesis. It's a stretch, but it only makes sense. And it makes even more sense when you see this panel from AC 1050. The fact that this movie came out in 2012 makes me think of it as a catalyst to the popularization of the evil Superman genre. I know there was media before this movie came out with the Boys comics and Invincible comics, but I believe Chronicle was the foot in the door for Hollywood to start their journey on the "this is how Superman would have turned out if he was raised in the world as today" type shit. Chronicle is a story about what would have happened if you completely neglect that one friend that you know is going through some rough shit. I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but just to be safe, if you take away the superpowers and the Superman aspect of the film, it would have been a really good movie about pumped up kicks. But with showing what could have happened to Clark if he was raised in a different environment, an abusive household to be specific, the consequences are terrifying. Years later, we'll get the horror iteration of this specific genre, Brightburn. Now, that's another video for another time, but we should wrap this video up in a nice little Kryptonian bow. The story of Chronicle is still very relevant in this day and age. If you rip away the fallen superhero aspect of the film, all that's left is a story about a boy who feels alone in the world, like it's out to get him. Hell, you could even say that Clark felt the same way when he started to get his powers. The only difference is being the people that surrounded them. Clark had a loving family and a really good friend circle to keep him on the right path, leading him to becoming the best version of himself, and eventually down the line have a family of his own. While Andrew had an alcoholic dad that didn't give two shits about him, and friends that knew what he was going through but didn't want to hear it, leading to his eventual turn to the dark side and death by his own cousin. All in all, Chronicle is one of the best found footage superhero films out there that will make any casual viewer go nuts. And if you're an avid comic book fan like us, this film will make you take a step back and think, what could have been Jordan if his dad wasn't there to guide him? So remember, kids, always check on your friends because you never know who's going to be the next pumped up kicks. But that's all I got for you in today's episode. What do you think? You think Chronicle's ship was Kryptonian? Or am I just spewing out absolute bullshit and just overthinking stuff? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. Happy holidays, everyone! Winter break is upon us, meaning more videos! Of course, the term starts right back up when 2025 starts, which sucks, but hey, we're almost there. Thank you guys for the continued support on this channel despite me being away for a month or two, but hey, college ain't easy. But if you enjoyed, leaving a like would be awesome as it gets a video out there, and subscribing will keep you up to date on the latest cult meetings. That's all from your boy. I hope you have a wonderful day, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.